Bibhar?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can start.
Yep. Can you remove this, please, for me? The screen. Amrita? Yeah. Just a moment. Oh, there's something. Yeah. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 10 years back, we would have never imagined we would be living in a situation where we work from home, work out from home, and work everything out from home. The second wave of COVID 19 has hit us so hard that it has definitely left us pondering about our ways, our life, and lifestyles with it. Technology has helped us tremendously in these testing times, and people are now focusing a lot on self development and comfort. The line between home and office has blurred, and people now feel the need to have things at the touch of their fingers. And that is probably why smart automation is gaining popularity. On this occasion, it gives me immense pleasure to have gotten the opportunity to collaborate with one of the most forward thinking brands in the electrical segment. Polycab. Polycab has been a market leader with a revenue of over 88 billion, making them the largest manufacturer of wires and cables in India, and is also the fastest growing FMEG player. Today, I'm delighted to be seated among some of the most prominent names in the industry and welcome you all to this very special panel. A very warm welcome to architect Nisha Matthew Ghosh, Tilak Thomas, Ravindra Kumar, Farhan Dhaval, Mr. Mahesh Prabhu, CEO Century Real Estate, and of course Mr. Manoj Verma, Chief Operating Officer Polycab India. The product that we are going to unveil today is going to revolutionize the way we look at smart automation. Called Home, it's a homegrown portfolio from the House of Polycab, developed on an indigenous platform and 100% manufactured in India. Without taking much time, I'm going to hand over the conversation to Mr. Verma. Just a little surprise for all our lovely viewers. We have three prizes to give away at the end of the session. The hints for which are hidden in the conversation to follow. So all eyes on the screen. Over to Mr. Verma.
Thanks, Vibhor, and good afternoon to the panelists. Good afternoon to all the participants of this particular session. My name is Manoj Verma. I drive the FMEG business at Polycab. Well, this next 1 hour is not about products, it's not about wires, it's not about cables, it's about experiences. And to just give you a glimpse of what is it that we are going to talk about over the next 10 minutes precisely, is a short audiovisual which will give you an idea of what is it that I'm going to talk about. So, Amrita, can I have the AV, please?
Alexa, open curtains. Imagine a lifestyle tailor-made to pamper you. Introducing the Home Smart Automation Solutions from Polycab, which transforms your house into an intelligent home, where intelligence is aesthetic, where functionality meets efficiency. Where comfort knows the warmth you wish for. Where technology spins a tale of tranquility. Where romance is orchestrated at your command. An integrated system which lets you control your home from any part of the world. Alexa, turn sleep mode on. Now, set the desired ambience, set daily schedules, and quite importantly, monitor your power consumption. Now, give your home the aesthetics it aspires. and the intelligence it deserves with home automation solutions from Polycab.
Thanks, Amrita. So that's a glimpse of what homes are going to become going forward, where by the time of the day and by the moods of the occupants, you could play music, you could really work things just by voice or by automatic controls or by even scheduling the various operations in a home. Amrita, can I have the presentation, please? What I'm going to do is in the next 5 minutes, maybe max, just walk you through what is home as a portfolio from the house of Polycab all about. It is basically a platform that we have created of smart controls. And the idea here is that we give smart controls which control all the electrical appliances in a home. So while the product becomes the hero, the main play is of the platform and the automation that we provide under the brand name Home. Next, please. So what is Home all about? Home is basically an experience of feeling elated. Home is about an elevated convenience, which means you are able to operate the electrical appliances by your personal preference, by convenience, by the time of the day, either at the touch of a button, either on your mobile or even voice. Home is about elevating comfort. And overall, if you really see, home is about an elevated lifestyle. How do we do it? We do it by designing a space with an automated platform which obeys every command that you may want to give to the system. It is about ensuring that you are in control of the comfort, convenience, and entertainment. And last but not the least, it is about feasibility of being able to handle, monitor, configure, or operate this particular platform anytime of the 24 hours and from any place in the world. So in short, Home is about an app. Home is about smart controls. Next, please. So what does Home offer? While all of us are already used to using fans, geysers, lights, curtain controllers, etc., all the electrical gadgetry that goes into a typical home, the portfolio from Home is basically offering smart controls. Smart controls, which means a mobile app that ensures that you have everything electrical in the home available on your mobile app to be able to be configured or operated. Voice enabled, which means either Alexa, Google, you are in a position to give commands of whatever it is that you want the system to do. You can create scenes, which means you can create light settings, you can create curtain controls, you can create various temperature settings of the air conditioning, and create a personal environment or an ambience to the individual liking of every occupant of the home. You can also do time scheduling, which means if you have a geofencing facility on your mobile app, what it will do is the moment you reach a kilometer away from your home, the curtains get drawn, the lights get dimmed, the music plays on, the geyser sets in, and the air conditioning gets set to the temperature of your personal liking. Next, please. So the portfolio from Home in terms of brick and mortar is about fans, lighting, switches, IR blasters, smart plugs, and many more that are on the way in terms of offerings from the house of Polycab. Next, please. So we have introduced a full range of switches. These are smart integrated switch panels with existing dimensions so that they go in existing cutouts that are made in the wall. These are with integrated electronics wherein you can operate them either by touch, you can operate them via voice, you can operate them via the internet. They come in various modules, 2 module, 4 module, 6 module, and we will offer you a catalog of finishes. So depending on the kind of finish that you create in the interior or on the wall, we can offer you an execution of the switch panel in that particular finish. Next, please. Now, the IR blaster is the hero, if I may say, in the pack. any electrical appliance in your home which you operate with a remote, this IR blaster is compatible to configuring that remote, whereby once you configure the equipment onto the home IR blaster, the gadget becomes smart. You are able to operate it out of voice, out of the various apps that you may have. Just to give you an idea of the kind of magnitude, almost 80,000 plus electrical equipments from across the globe of any brand that you may think of, which work on remote controls, can be configured on this small little black box. We also are offering smart plugs. So you have existing electrical gadgetry, which is not smart. You connect it via this smart plug. The gadgetry becomes smart and you can operate it via the app or via voice. Next, please. We have a range of geysers in various capacities. They are smart. They can also be programmed for time scheduling. They can be programmed via geofencing, whereby, as I said earlier, the moment you are getting close to your house, you can switch on the geyser and set the temperature to your personal liking. Next, please. Lighting, we have a full array of lighting products, and you can actually do anything that you may want to do with the light in the interior. So you can change color temperatures, you can dim, you can link it to daylight, you can link it to occupancy. They can be voice, they can be Alexa. So any kind of operation or setting or mood set that you may want in the lighting system in an interior, it is possible along with these products. Next, please. Most homes use chandeliers, pendants. We have a range of lamps which are basically RGB, so you can get any color tone that you may want of your personal liking. Next, please. We have a range of fans. There are two categories of fans. One is basically a smart fan which gets hooked onto the app, the home mobile app, which is both for Android and iOS. And the second one is an intelligent fan. When I say intelligent, it is a fan which senses the ambience in the room, which means if the temperature in the room goes up, the speed goes up. It will send, it also has an algorithm into the electronics whereby it will give you an unpredictable breeze mode, whereby it assimilates coming out into your room from an open window. And that is the breeze mode. So it gets you a feeling of being sitting out in the open, because the speed of the fan changes irregularly and tries to create a kind of a breeze. Next, please. So there are two. The earlier fan was the fan which uses the normal motor, and that would be where you would get a very marginal energy saving. But this particular model uses BLDC, which is the new generation DC motors, whereby you can bring down the energy consumption by the sheer motor by 50%, and add to that the smartness and smart controls. You can reduce the energy consumption of the fan by almost as high as 60 to 62%. Next, please. So why home? I mean, the features that home offers are: one, all the home products talk to each other. All the home products would have a geofencing feature. The lighting would become intelligent, which means it could sense the daylight, it could sense occupancy. And in the phase 2, we are going to bring in intelligence where the artificial lighting will create daylight in an interior. And that is, we call the human-centric lighting, which actually is artificial lighting, which follows the circadian rhythm of a human body. So the way your body is aligned to work in sunlight, we will be able to create it in an interior. Next, please. Few more points. One, single app controls all the electrical equipment. Number two, the fear that a consumer has in today's context where automation is new. We already have created a dedicated customer care team, which is available 24/7 on a call center. They offer you assistance in design, assistance in selection, assistance in installation, and maintenance. So if you want to have maintenance of all the electrical gadgetry handed over to one singular agency, we have a team which can offer you that. Next, please. What we have done is for various configurations of apartments, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, depending on the automation extent that the buyer wants, as also the budget that the buyer has in terms of investing into an automation solution, we have created some very standard packages, standard modules, and we've categorized them into 4 basics: silver, gold, and platinum. So each of them would offer automation, but at a different extent and for different configurations. So you can have home automation in as low as 30,000 bucks for a 1 bedroom apartment. Next slide, please. And it can go up to 315,000 rupees for a 4 bedroom, which would be a fully loaded. Now, when I say fully loaded, it has occupancy sensors, it has curtain controllers, it has an integration of the fan with the air conditioning and whatever have you. Next, please. As I mentioned earlier, there are more products that are there which would get launched in the Q3 of this calendar year. We have motorized curtains. We have gas leak sensors, which is a safety element in a home. We have occupancy sensors, IP cameras. We are working on video door phones. We are also working on smart door locks, where you would be able to handle the access control in your home via the app sitting anywhere in the world. There are a couple of more lighting products that are cooking, but they are more for offices, for retails, for hospitality, healthcare. Next, please. So with whatever we have ready and whatever is coming in, from the house of Polycab, we offer home as a brand, which is an experience that you own, which is that you are able to install because it is very easy to install. You enjoy about things which allows you to do things the way you want them done. Next, please. So that's about it. Thank you very much. And over to Sumisha. And I'm available for any questions. We walk into the seminar now. Thank you.
All right. That is incredible, Mr. Verma, and I'm sure our panelists would agree. Home is the present and the future of smart homes. On that note, I would like to hand the baton to our moderator, Sumisha Gilotra, the editor of Architect and Interiors India, one of the ITP Group flagship publication, and even if I may say it myself, one of the most respectable industry-focused magazine on architecture and interior design in the industry. Sumisha herself has incredible experience and has been writing on architecture and interiors for over 13 years. I'm going to let her take it off from here. Over to you, Sumisha.
Thank you so much, Bidor, for the kind words, and congratulations, Polycab, for the launch of this revolutionary product. And a very warm welcome to all our panelists. It gives me immense joy to be seated amongst all of you virtually and to welcome you to this panel discussion today, while we discuss the topic of discussion, which is smart technology for smart homes. Most of you don't really need an introduction, but I'm still going to give it a shot. First on our panel today is Nisha Matthew Ghosh. Nisha is the co-founder of Matthew Ghosh Architects and is one of the most prominent names in the country when it comes to sustainability and community building. She was recently selected to design the Indian Pavilion installation at the London Design Biennale this year. So welcome, Nisha. We are happy to have you on our panel. Next, we have Ravindra Kumar, a crusader of urban design in India and a patron of sustainable location-specific architecture and design. He's the director of design at Venkatraman Associates and principal architect of Prague Group. Next up is Tilak Thomas, who's the second-generation architect leading one of the Bangalore's most renowned firms, Thomas & Associates. Welcome, Tilak. Farah and Dhaval are co-founders of Bangalore-based studio Fat Studio that they established in 2012 and are currently working on some of the top residential projects in the city. Welcome, guys. Mahesh Prabhu is the CEO of Century Real Estate, one of the most respected full spectrum developers of India and one of the largest land bank owners of the industry, with more than 40 years of industry leadership. Welcome, Mahesh. And of course, we have Mr. Verma, who's an industry veteran and has significant work experience in sales, marketing, and operations across top companies in electrical segment. He's the executive president and COO at Polycab India and is driving the FMEG business unit to great heights. On that note, I think it's time to kickstart our discussion. Just a note for the audience, we would like to make the discussion as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, you can put them down in the chat window and I will try to take them as and when. I would like to begin this discussion with the most pertinent question, and this one goes out to you, Ravi. Why do you think we need automation and how does it benefit a designer or an architect?
Let me be a bit awkward here. I'm not such a super fan of automation. But having said that, that is very context-based, I must confess.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a growing country. The population is growing into a space which needs more imagination and control parameters to happen from the infrastructure, from what the city can do, what the security systems or the police or the fire authorities can actually support an infrastructure to actually feed the joy of automation. For me, automation is not just about, controlling light or bringing a certain amount of efficiency to sustainability in terms of what it can do to various aspects of energy consumption that network itself into a building idea. But it grows more in terms of what it can actually do in a spectacular way for, gas detection, for intrusion, for monitoring, proximities and people access into a building, or for fire detection. So there are so many parameters of such kind where, the interface of automation works very, very well. For example, when you design larger corporates, you realize that these barriers of access and entry and monitoring and evaluation, and also when the energy consumption in terms of lighting, wattages, or in terms of how your air handling units work on large, volumes of air conditioning become significantly large. So there, the impact that automation does is macro level.
Absolutely.
At home, I think we as India, we need to still grow into another space to really enjoy and see the advantage of it being accurate. Yeah.
Which is why we say that smart automation is the future. I think it's a lot like social media as well, where initially all of us were so apprehensive to put ourselves out there on Instagram. But if one thing the pandemic has taught us in the last 1.5 years is that is one of the most effective way to sort of keep in touch, and technology really has taken over with time. Nisha, would you like to tell us what are your thoughts on smart automation to improve the energy efficiency of a project, which I think Ravi also did touch upon, but if you could just elaborate on that. Nisha, you're still on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
no problem.
I'd like to just add to what Ravi was saying in terms of yes, we need to grow into it, but just to have a brief diversion, that automation somehow needs to come into a space where it cannot. I mean, and I think as architects, we do need to still be aware that this whole idea of darkness and light, the local context, the richness of those local nuances cannot be lost in a highly, what I would call the potential to be, a sort of an alternative environment where, let's say, someone, I think it was just mentioned in the presentation, where you're able to create, the natural breeze or whatever it is. And I think that's vital to see both as, and the most successful automation will be, and some of the images we saw were really beautiful. The most successful will be when it kind of becomes as natural to us as as a skin, where you're able to just naturally move. It's very aesthetic. It's quite an art project, and I think, as you said, Ravi, we have to grow into that. We're not comfortable with it yet. I think in terms of its energy impact, I mean, it's phenomenal because you can control, just sitting wherever you are, you can minimize the use of lights and fans and electrical appliances. It's sort of like a no-brainer brilliance. It's a must-do thing, because we all tend to be, when you're manually involved with things and when there are no sensors, you tend to leave lights on, just in the context of a house. So I think, it's a no-brainer decision that we should be using automation, just to be able to reduce the inefficiencies of our own habits. And I think, as was mentioned, that scale, when you start looking at really large offices, large facilities, city scale, lights, street lights, and all of that, it's a whole new dimension. And I think it's really phenomenal potential. But as an architect, I would still, the first thing that I said, that as that little thing of where does the architecture position, with the natural context and how a building addresses these things, how does that really, how can we cleverly bring this in so that we don't compromise on the first? And I think that's vital, not to lose that sense of context through our work.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I'm sorry, I lost you in the end. Did I miss something?
No.
Okay. I totally agree with you. In fact, Mr. Verma, would you like to add on to the energy efficiency and also tell us that, we do see that there is a lot of apprehension for people to take on to smart automation. Why do you think that is there, and how do you combat those? Mr. Verma, you're on mute. Sorry,
my apology.
No problem.
To what Nisha mentioned, I fully endorse. A home has to look like a home. In the gamut of wanting automation, I cannot make it lifeless. So I'm fully with you, Nisha. Today, you have lighting solutions where you can create sunlight in an interior to the T, which means the 24 hours, 60 minutes per hour, I can give you the wavelength of light that you would experience under the sun. And it would change by the minute, by the second, whereby the electronics links up with your geoposition, tracks the sun path at that point of the year, and gives you light which is as natural as sunlight. So that's possible today. To your second point, that if there is a form that we have created in an interior, obviously the automation shouldn't be messing around with it. So that's where I said creating moods, creating scenes, creating various kinds of preset modes, which are to each an individual personal liking. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. In fact, the next phase of automation is going to be where the system will track your preferences and your settings over a period of 6 months. And through AI, your mobile being your permanent companion, the moment you enter the room, the system will sense that you have entered the room and start recalibrating everything to your personal liking. It'll happen on its own. You will not have to do anything. So even voice activation is going to become redundant.
So clearly,
and on the energy saving piece, we have data which says if you do smart automation with the fair selection of electrical gadgetry, you can save as high as 50 to 55% of energy being consumed today in a typical home interior.
That's right. So Tilak, I love to say this often, that a person doesn't become smart by using a smartphone. He needs to use it smartly to benefit out of it. So can you tell us, how can we use smart automation smartly to get the best out of it?
Yeah, so I think I'm a skeptic of anything that is really embedded in a building. It has to last the life cycle of that building, right? And once embedded, it's there. And when you're calling it smart today, does it remain smart all right through its entire course? So there is a danger here. I think in all that was presented that, it starts to look a little gimmicky and, so you got to separate the gimmicks from really what really
The
matters.
function.
Function. And I think you have a fair bit of data from, in the last conversation you were having, there's some 10,000 installations in Bangalore in apartments alone. There's a lot of data to take from that, so there's a lot of learning take from that. Try and separate the two, see what's really intuitive and what's really needed going forward, and not the overkill. And all our electronic devices, we hardly use probably 8-10%. I don't know how many percent of the phone that we have, or so it's overloaded with a lot of things that are probably unnecessary and not needed. We could unload, I think, quite a bit. Sustainability angle is something that's exciting for me. I think take it outside the doorstep of just the front door and the front doorbell, take it out onto the street and take it out into the yard. In apartment buildings that we do, probably common areas, try and get some facts and figures out of that, how much of water usage. Statistics are also thrown at you at some point that you start learning that you're wasting or you're not wasting, or your build also accordingly. So there's a lot that it can extend into. I'm finding that right now it's still a little gimmicky. It needs to head down that path, I think, that is where it becomes a little more practical and more useful for people out here.
I think a lot of it does also depends on the usage and the way people use it. If you're using it just to put your aircon on or to put your lighting off, it might not serve. It's not, doing full justice to it. It's like our phones, right? If we don't use all the features, we obviously are not doing complete justice to it. So only if we learn to create the kind of ambience, we can probably use it correctly as well.
A classic example is a hotel room lighting, right? I don't think as yet people are still yet to crack it. It's a simple room, but it's lighting and all the controls within a hotel room. So every brand has its brand standard, but despite that, it's a highly complex process to get lights the way you want it, or the setting the way you want it. You're in it for the first time, right? It's not something that you're familiar with. You walk in there, you're really struggling trying to get things, and you have to set a pattern. So that's a matter of actually overkill in terms of multiple options, multiple mood settings, multiple curtain settings, multiple blind. You have all sorts of blind settings. So it becomes quite complex to figure it out. So I think it should be really. It doesn't need to take a smart person to figure that out. It needs to be intuitive and really. A little kid should be. A kid is really smart also, but smarter than probably.
Maybe.
Yes, Mr. Manoj, you can probably.
So Tilak, the way the technology is evolving, and I spent all of yesterday basically discussing this. If you are a traveler, you normally have very set hotels where you stay. And if those hotels have room automation, after your first visit where you have done the manual setting to your personal liking, the next time you will not need to do it, because the moment you check in, your preferences have already got calibrated to the room that gets allotted to you. So when you enter, the curtains are drawn, the AC is at the temperature. So, what you said about data, this is what data will start doing, tracking your consumption patterns and start aligning the system to the way you want them to. So no more of mobiles, no more of voice. The system will sense your presence via the mobile that you carry, and it'll start recalibrating everything the way you would want them to be. So you can actually create your living room in the hotel room in terms of the music playing, in terms of the light, the AC, the curtains, everything.
Absolutely. Mahesh, would you like to give us a developer's point of view to this, since most people say that smart automation makes a lot of sense when it's a larger project? What is your point of view about this?
Hi, Sumisha.
Hey.
So my point of view on automation is a little different, because today, people are talking about saving costs and efficiency and all that. Today's world, when half the world is blaming real estate developers of kind of spoiling the environment by building concrete jungles, I think our main aim is to reduce the carbon footprint. So rather than saving costs and other things, we look at that. And today options are available where you can automate and save the energy, which is incidental for us, in terms of saving costs and all that. But in large projects, I think it makes a huge difference for everyone, mainly because I think the air conditioners are one of the, power guzzlers. So, controlling that, I think, plays an important role. And other than that, I think lighting,
Lighting.
lighting, because all the offices and more in commercial projects, I think this automation plays a very important role. But of late, I mean, since options are available, like Mr. Manoj also mentioned, you don't have to make any changes in residential. You can do a retrofitting, I think we are looking at new projects where we are giving the option to the customers to kind of have automation as a part of their life. On a lighter note, I think in my house, always the issue is about who has to get up to go and switch off the light or switch on a light. So I think these kind of help because it's all at your fingertip. So I think definitely automation, I think, has an important role to play as we go forward.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to come back to each of you and try and understand any experiences that you have with smart automation, and I'd love to discuss those. But first, since Paran, Dhaval, you guys have been working on a lot of high-end residential projects, I'd like to know that from a design point of view, how can you use smart automation to make things function better?
So kind of adding on to certain points that, Tilak touched upon about, going to the hotel room and having the ease of use being one of the most important factors, that really plays an important role in our interiors. One, because, we don't live in a country, in a country where it's just like the primary homeowners that are using the automation. A lot of our homes have a minimum of 3 to 5 staff who are cleaning, opening the curtains, closing the curtains, turning on the ACs, turning off the ACs. So it's also about the education, and like how Nisha said, right? It's got to feel like your skin. And often the primary homeowner isn't comfortable with the technology themselves, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone. So for them to kind of trust this big task onto their helpers at home is something that is a huge barrier to entry for home automation. So they keep it to something very basic, like a remote on off. Also, a lot of the homes that we design are joint families, so they have their parents living with them. So in that, our generation has a tough time dealing with it, so the generation above us has an even tougher time dealing with it. So often when it's a joint family, a hardcore automation is often rejected. The basics are there, curtains, ACs, then maybe a little bit of Alexa. But in terms of the way we saw this presentation, it's hard. In fact, one of the homes that Ravi designed, we used a lot of automation. We had a 33 feet high window, and there was no other way but to use, as he laughs there, there was no other way to do it except automation. But that being said, we have had a really interesting home maybe about 6 years ago, where the client's brief was very much to the way Manoj was describing, right? So one is to conserve your electricity and all your points. So basically this couple, their brief was, if I'm sitting in the US and I have a friend who wants to stay in my house, I should press a button, my main door should open, his favorite song should play, the temperature should be just right, it shouldn't be hot, where he comes in and he's like, oh my God, let's turn the AC on. And we joke, Dhaval and I joke, that there's more wire in this apartment than there is wood. So in that sense, we have done it, and in that home it works. Of course, there were a few glitches, but it does work. He turns his music on when he's about to enter his house. He has 7 different light colors, the sunlight. So I think it really depends on the openness of the client to embrace the technology more. I think it's just the technology. And like you said, say 2 years ago, we were not open to social media. Now we are. So it really is about education. And also, maybe 5 years ago, smartphones were not being used by everyone except the elite. And now everybody in the country has it. So perhaps as it becomes easier to use, and even our house help understands how to use it, I think as a population, we'll be much more open to it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is possible now through a DIY, where earlier, like you mentioned, everything needed to be wired and maybe automation needed to come in maybe earlier. Now with, what I see in the presentation as well is that a lot of it can be even done post, and people can do it themselves based on their requirements and as they grow out of it. In fact, Ravi, I remember you mentioning, what is your point of view of using automation for security and for larger projects like a micro city, etc., like we were discussing?
More and more, I think we are growing into a kind of a calibration of what community means in sectors. For example, you look at Friends Colony in Delhi, the gated communities in Bangalore, that is becoming passe, but growing into a new sort of regime of what that means to hold territory.
Mm-hmm.
There are possibilities that, for example, where I stay in south of Bangalore, a couple of roads have been kind of worked out in such a way that we came as a small community and decided to have little booms and gates and organized security and landscape, which the government or the public body will not do. But this also disallows thoroughfare. It does not allow unnecessary people to take this as a shortcut to go into another point of destination. How do you monitor who came in and who came out? For example, on the opposite edge of the office where I sit today, there were three, chain snatchers. So it was so easy for us to detect because we have CCTV networks running all along the edge. So the cops could come and talk to us and find out exactly what time, what happened. It's also sound modulated. So they could figure out what to do. And the camera quality was very high. They could actually recognize the number plate. And like when there was a theft in our office, we actually made a whole movie about it. He was here for 3.5 hours. And we actually, from the point he entered till the time he exited, we had a full movie sequel that we did, and we caught him. And then I went to court and put him behind bars for 12 years. So it's there are so many super advantages when it comes to security. There's a question on that. I think without that, we wouldn't have ever been able to achieve what we could in this last, couple of years. But yes, I hold a pinch of reservation to things that we want to be better than God, For example, when Verma says that he's going to give the same sunshine in a space using LED, don't be God, I want to touch a woman, and not a plastic space, right? So it's very important that we can probably bring a certain quantum of daylight to a space. I can understand that you can control that without having to fight who goes to the toggle. So that is something that is possible. But for me, the biggest fear is the way technology changes, every fortnight. That is scary for me to touch it, and I don't know what's going to happen, and within a period of 1.5 years, everything is redundant. Like today I was talking to a person, your whole house can have a lighting circuit where you can command and create the color temperature of the light, and the claim is also that it can be sensory to conversations. Like your girlfriend comes in, you can say, give me red, it becomes red, but I don't know how much we want to grow into this kind of a space, which becomes very overtly dependent on that method of living, because we still want to stretch, we still want to move, we want our sensories to develop better quality and calibration of sensitivity than become redundant. So more the technology that you include in your life, I think that much more your grayscales die. So for me, that's a yin yang. So you have to think, and I don't know, I'm not saying it's a question or it's an answer, but it's a comment. So therefore, there are super advantages in how you can grow into certain sectors of security, as Sumisha said. And that is something that I think we must educate the government and public body to come together as communities and not just look at individuals to want to buy that and organize and operate on that. And the extension, of course, to people who are specially able, it's a big, big, big advantage. Many years back, I think in 99, we built a home for one of the Infoscions who was the facility head. And we worked with Tata Honeywell. Those days, it was only Tata Honeywell which was doing automation. And he had a special child. And he and his wife both could sit in their office spaces. They could look at their son, they could switch on light, and they could do things to the house to facilitate him. They could switch off their washing machine. They could make the refrigerator kind of open out. There's so many things. I mean, he invested all that money. So there was a huge advantage and what you could do, what you can do with technology. And but how this country will understand, I think it's still a pinch of time.
I think you've made a great point, Ravi, out there. In fact, even in all the panel discussions that we've had so far, we've realized that homes that have a lot of have either senior citizens or kids in the home offer spaces that are designed for senior citizens or for children. Home automation is definitely a must-have because it kind of makes things much, much easier, not just from the security point of view, or even from the usage point of view. Initially, people might find it a little difficult to use, but eventually, once they get used to it, we've had examples of in the past where senior citizens cannot live anymore without the automation that is there. In fact, Nisha, what I'd like to know from you is that a lot has changed in the last few. I do see a lot of apprehension towards smart automation, but a lot has also changed in the last 1.5 years thanks to the pandemic. Do you also see a shift happening in the near future? Especially since it's also sustainable and it's also now that people are working from home, etc.
Yes, I mean, this change is going to be inevitable as our lifestyles get busier, as conveniences are invented and bettered. But I still think the big challenge before us and for people like home and other such in the industry will be, how does one sort of make it natural to the common man? How do they kind of grow into that very naturally? Because there's also the other thing of what happens if I just get locked out, something just doesn't function, and what's the backup? And I think those are the assurances that companies need to educate us on, so that it becomes, one grows into it step by step. Maybe in some projects it's multiple steps, but for certain there is I think all of us have said that there's a little apprehension at the back of our heads, to really completely switch to that mode of using these amenities. And they're great amenities, they're great infrastructure, but how does one get comfortable? And what is really the backup? There's got to be a service backup which enables, if something goes wrong, you call the local electrician. How does this happen? In this case, if you're home automated, do you have to wait for the company? Do they get back to you after 48 hours? What is that backup? And I think that backup needs to be built up to see a great jump in people using it. So from not just high-end houses and institutions and restaurants and high-end hospitality, but also coming back, maybe middle class, how do they get excited about this? Because there are people who believe in it and who believe in its sustainable potential to really save energy and all of that. But it's still not as easy as, it should be, as easy as it should feel like, adapting into quickly.
Anuj, would you like to take that question from Nisha?
Yeah. A very valid point. And if you remember, I did make a mention that the first inhibition of a typical Indian consumer, and I don't mean to be derogatory here, but this is real. Whenever there is anything new that is bought or there is an intent to buy, the first question that the consumer, and even I have asked that question, so I really want to be honest here, is what if it fails? What if it doesn't work? What we've done is very simply, our customer care team that we have already created at Polycab for our normal products, we have authorized service franchisees spread over 750 cities in this country. We have about 600 trained electricians who are on roll, and we have double the number which are off roll who are on contract. We have a 24/7 toll-free number. So we are not one of those companies which say the working hours are 9 to 6, which many companies do. We are talking of a call center which is supposed to work 24/7, because in automation, it could be 11:30 in the night that your mobile app is not responding. Now, you want it resolved at that point in time. You're not going to be waiting for Polycab to get back to you in the morning. So we are creating an infrastructure of a 24/7 call center. You have an issue, call the call center. The call center has, because of the internet connection, the call center has capability to connect to your system. Over a period in time, we will develop that capability. So we will be able to connect to your app and do troubleshooting and do fixing of the bug. You are dot on. When anybody is investing in this, one is the amount of money that the consumer is expected to pay for the automation. Yeah. Second is something that he or she doesn't know about as of today. As a brand in this country, I have to give that assurance. I wouldn't call it assurance. I would say I have to guarantee satisfactory performance. So our approach is 5 years, unquestionable guarantee. You have an issue, we are there. If it fails, we replace. So we don't want to get into the repair mode. I mean, you were dot on when you said 48 hours ke baad wo aayega and then he's going to check, and nothing. It's going to be online. And that is an infrastructure we felt we will have to first create before we sell the first product. But that's a question the Indian consumer is going to ask.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest challenges of smart automation, which any of you designers will probably face, is convincing clients that you have a backup or it's reliable. Besides that, what are the other apprehensions that clients really have? Is there anybody who'd like to bring that up? Since we have Mr. Verma here to sort of address.
I would only lay to rest Farah's inhibition that you have in Indian families, you have the elderly. Now, if I am struggling at my age with my mobile phone, I can't expect my father at the age of 80 to be talking automation. So for a true Indian setup and mindset, our entire home automation has a manual override. So my dad can switch on and off through the switch. Simple as that.
I'm with your dad.
And the point that Ravi mentioned that, the aged, I wouldn't say they are specially abled, but at their age, they need certain facilities. So you can have footlights in the living room where the moment your elderly puts the leg down, the moment the leg hangs over the bed, the occupancy sensor on the footlight senses it and it starts switching on the lights on the path from the bed to the toilet. So that's the kind of control you can give. Now here, you made it absolutely simple and it's a no-brainer. You get up, you start walking, the lights keep on getting on as you walk. Once you're back, they go off. So all this is there. But yes, it'll take time.
Yeah, and a lot of it also depends on the design that you create and how you use the automation. It all, I think, boils down to that at the end of the day. Mahesh, would you like to tell us, does smart automation help in salability as well when it comes to buildings or not anymore?
I think some of the concerns other panelists told, I think it's valid when it comes to, sales also. Customers have their own contention whether it'll work or not. I think for luxury projects, we are definitely providing all these home automation in terms of the control unit and maybe a limited set of operations, maybe like not like a curtain control, but definitely few of the light controls. And then we are giving, like how Mr. Manoj also mentioned, they have different packages. So we have worked out different packages where then the customers can interact with the agency who we hire to kind of upgrade their systems. Having said that, we believe that future is in automation because obviously when some convenience is there, it's always better to adapt it rather than just to be in the denial mode. We feel that, it's just a matter of time before it becomes affordable across all segments of the society. So maybe a mid-segment apartments also will start giving automation. But contention is always there whether the traditional system of switching on the lights is better or we go to automation. But that I think only time will tell which is more useful.
Absolutely. Tilak, now that Mahesh has said that, if I had to give you a project where you had to use automation, what were the points or what would be the elements where you would use automation effectively?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, most of our projects are multi-dwelling homes, so we don't do much of single family homes. So I have seen automation. We've done automation for the last 8-10 years. Very, very likely at a very high level because of, it gives you a tick mark on the marketing front that yes, we've considered home automation. But I would like to see it come outside of that realm of just basic controls, get into we're talking on one side of water conservation. In the multi-dwelling situation, there are all these problems that come about one apartment is using more water than the other. How do you fill bill it, or how does someone get aware that he's wasting water or even power for that matter. So I'd like to see it going into monitoring, into sensors and things that are placed at locations. All that data gets collated. Your common area maintenance, it's a highly debatable topic, so there's a lot of arguments on that, and why did I get such a big bill this month, or why did I get a bill when someone else is using it more. So it could really rationalize that whole thought process. And India is kind of moving increasingly, when it's urbanizing, it is moving vertical, it is moving into these multi-dwelling kind of units. So how do you take care of, you foresee problems that we could have in the future, and see how we could mitigate that, security being a massive concern. I think putting this into action, really getting all that information and data and then putting it into some sort of number crunching thing, giving you facts and figures up front, that you get some stats out of it and you're able to take home something from there, or you're billed accordingly or something like that. So it should translate to actual tangible numbers or something, some sort of
Fair enough. I think that's a very fair point that you've made. And in fact, I remember while I was studying up on the topic, I realized that a lot of people in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which have those larger homes, which have patios, are using smart automation a lot. I guess, Mr. Verma, have you experienced that as well? Or if any of you have felt that, people in tier 2, tier 3 cities are embracing automation much quicker than maybe like the tech city Bangalore is?
Sumisha, the last 2 webinars we did, the outcome of that is about 250 inquiries, and 70% of them are from tier 2, tier 3.
So I think that says it all.
These are middle income people who are living in apartments, want to automate their home, not for fancy, but they have valid reasons of energy, valid reasons of security. So they want an IP camera. They want a video door phone because of security, because tier 2, tier 3 still has the issue of safety and security.
Absolutely.
We have a couple of inquiries where consumers are asking for gas leak sensors. Can you imagine?
I'm not actually surprised. It makes so much sense, because ultimately security, that extends to security as well. And what I understand is that smart automation is very subjective to the kind of project, the kind of location, and the requirement of the clients. So I think we should leave it at that. And I have a couple of questions. Most of them are curious to know about how the system responds to the manual overrides. Would a system be able to tell that a child is playing with the controls in the absence of a parent? This is a question that has come from Abhishai. I think, Mr. Verma, you would like to take that?
Yeah, the system has intelligence to find out, because you would have a switching operation with a certain frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to switch on and off the light repeatedly. So it is configured to sense if it has been switched on and off beyond a number of times in a minute, and beyond that it just goes into the sleep mode.
Right. In fact, I think taking this question, the next question that I have takes a leaf out of what Ravi had said, where somebody is asking that, are there any ethical considerations regarding the implications on our fundamental interactions with nature, and then using them in the smart automation? I think Ravi answered this question earlier. And another question is that your system is based on an IR tech. How do you overcome the interface of the walls, etc., in the system?
So the basic system which is working today is on Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do the design for a home, which is also a service we will be offering, we will ensure basis the layout of the home whether your Wi-Fi signal strength is adequate or no. What we are doing is we are working on an alliance with router companies. So while designing the home, if we feel that the home requires more than one router, we offer that consulting as well. And we will provide the router along with the home package.
A lot of people
and the next technology is a Wi-Fi mesh, which means for a home, the equipment in itself will create the Wi-Fi mesh. So you don't need a router.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a question from one of the guests was, what about security? people hacking into my system. So the moment you use a Wi-Fi mesh, you will have a security. You can create a mesh of your family members, which will be password protected. So nobody can walk into your system as a breach. All these are features which are very clearly there.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions for home, which we can probably address them over email later as well.
Yes,
For the designers, there's just one question which everybody wants to know is that what is the kind of client which should probably use home automation, which would help make their lives much better? Farah, would you like to take that? Farah Dhaval?
I think somebody who's technology savvy, somebody who's very patient, because as Mr. Varma said, our country's infrastructure needs to first be set. Like, we need to have stable internet connection. We need to have modems and routers that don't fall apart every 2 months, and it could also be just a matter of having good reception. Like Dhaval and I were recently discussing, in Goa, when we're doing a lot of projects in Goa which sometimes require automation, but in Goa you don't even have enough signal to make a phone call, let alone have a 4G, let alone calling a customer care from inside your villa and saying something is not working. So in these sort of places, first our country has to just get the infrastructure right to be able to support this service, because I mean ultimately we're an ecosystem that depend on each other. So I think the kind of client who will be okay with automation in their home, like I said, somebody who's extremely patient, okay with evolving with technology, okay with certain updates and things that happen every week. And I think someone who's also okay to train their families and their help, and are okay to sort of troubleshoot, and they can't be perfectionists, because this sort of thing really still needs to be ironed out really well.
Then there's a learning curve as well. Dhaval, would you like to say something about that, to add on to what Farah has said?
I think adding on to that, what Farah was saying is, I think biggest challenge when we as architects and designers or even clients are taking the decision of home automation, I think we all need to be educated is whether to go for a retrofit system or a wired system. That's the first starting point actually, where we all need to learn about it, because there's so much of infiltration of Chinese products or products from everywhere. To selecting a right brand is the first question, right? Not all retrofit systems are flexible or they are adaptable. Adaptable, as I say, what I mean by saying adaptable means the technology is changing so fast, and if your retrofit system doesn't adapt to it, your home automation is going to be very flat. It's not going to be taking on the new appliances or equipments or whatever you're adding into your home. Because today I'm adding a smart TV or a smart refrigerator or smart coffee machine or whatever, right? It has to be adaptable to all that. So there's a first question needs to be answered at that level. Whether do we have a flawless retrofit system, first of all, if we are going for that, or still go in a conventional, I'm not talking about any particular brand, but still go to a conventional way of doing the wired systems. I think that's a larger call we need to decide about.
So Dhaval, on that, but just before we wrap up the session, at what stage do you think that smart automation should be introduced in a project?
So I think there's two things, right? One is the existing home, where you are doing an existing home, or say you're renovating an existing home. My personal home, if I want to make it like a automated home, so what system, because my house is already wired, what kind of system might fit into that? So I will go for more like a retrofit system. Or say if I'm building a new home or a new project, right? So there we would rather go for a conventional load wired system, because you have a chance of doing the wiring all together in the current planning stage. Then that depends on the stage of the project you enter in and what kind of homes you're building. I think that's also very important to know.
Absolutely agree with you. I think we had
I just want to add the last one. I think what we are at the current phase of smart home automation, where we are, I think it's very similar to the smartphone system. I think we were all into Symbian phones in 2005, 2006. We all moved to iPhones. Not everybody adapted the smartphones or Samsung Galaxy or whatever. There were a lot of phones which not everybody adapted immediately. It took time to get into that. Even my mom uses a smartphone finally now. She uses WhatsApp, and also it's much more it's taken time to do all that. So it's in a similar phase where we are at the smart. It's going to be inevitable. Every home is going to be a smart home for sure. Today we do not have a TV without a remote. Remote is also kind of a technology which was adapted. And yeah, so that way, I think smart homes are inevitable. It's going to be like that. All the homes
That's a great concluding point that you've made for us, Dhaval. And it was a fantastic discussion. Lots of interesting insights that we got today. In fact, I've been receiving comments as well saying that it's such a positive discussion that we've had today and very honest. And I think that's what makes this panel discussion really interesting. In fact, when I think on that note that like I mentioned even earlier, that social media, smartphones, these are all examples. And eventually, I'm sure everybody will take time. Even the companies will evolve, and so will we, and so will the designers, and so will the users. And eventually, we'd probably all be talking somewhere in the air, like one of those futuristic manners. So maybe the next panel discussion that we have. Now, without spending more time, I am going to get on to the Q&A, which is for the audience. So let's start with that before we end the session. Amrita, do you want to bring on the slides? Okay, so that's the first question that we have. Hang on. Your existing non-smart appliance device. Everybody can answer the questions in the chat window. And the first person who gives the right answer is going to get the prize. People who have participated in the past are pleased to allow others to give others a chance to win. And I think we already have the answers coming in. Maybe we should go on to the next question.
I think that was a faster response than KBC.
That was like the fastest fingers first. Even before I could complete the question, people went on to it. Okay, so there is home smart automation solution package for a 1 BHK starts from what price? Okay, I already have our responses coming. Great. I think we have an answer there. Shall we go on to the next question? Oh, I like Aswani's answer. Home smart automation product portfolio includes fans and appliances, lighting, switches and accessories, air blaster and smart plugs. True or false? Okay. That was pretty simple, wasn't it? Tilak was hoping that he would probably get a chance to participate as well. I think that was fantastic. I genuinely really enjoyed the discussion today. And while our team processes the winners, I'd like to take the opportunity to place the vote of thanks. The launch of Home marks Polycab's entry into home automation, which as today discussed is very evident need of the hour. Home is definitely another feather in the already full hat of Polycab, and I wish you all the best for its success. I'd of course like to thank all our esteemed panelists, each one of you, for taking the time out and sharing valuable views on this pertinent topic of smart automation. Thank you, Tilak. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Nisha, Farah and Dhaval, Mahesh, and of course, Manoj. I got to learn a lot from all of you today. It's a matter of pride for all of us at ITP to be the anchors of this very special launch by Polycab. And I look forward to continuing this series with architects and industry professionals from across the country. Thank you to the entire team of Polycab India, ITP India, Architect and Interiors India, who have collaborated seamlessly to make this launch of Home and this panel discussion such a success. And I'm hoping that by now we have the winners of the quiz. Do we have them, Amrita? There's way too much silence.
Yes, we do.
Great. And thank you, everybody, all the audience as well, for participating. Yes, Amrita, can we have the winners now?
Sure. So the first winner is Sajesh Soman. The second winner is Uma K.C. Raju. And the third winner is Jayanti Vankar.
Great. Congratulations to all the winners. We will get in touch with you to get in your details, and you will be receiving a smart home hamper from Polycab. Thank you once again, all the panelists, for joining us. It was genuinely a very insightful discussion. And congratulations once again to Polycab.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumisha. Thank you, Vibhor. And thank you to the panelists. We are really honored to have had you. And thank you very much for having taken out time. Your inputs are invaluable. And I promise you, each of them is going to be on the table to work upon.
Brilliant session, I would say. Very devout. Thank you. Thank you.